Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Justin Paints Japan. Today, we are traveling through Japan, like every other day. But, so we're starting in the south. We started in Yakushima Island, went to Tanegashima Island. Now we're just hitting the bottom part of South mainland Japan. I am super excited. Today's is pretty spectacular. I don't know. This scene that we've found is just like, it's beautiful. I don't know what to say about it. It's like quintessential, beautiful, Ghibli-esque, delightful stuff. So I'm really excited about getting into it. And I suppose here we go. She was a full moon. Welcome back. Super excited. I'm super excited too. So here we go. Let's begin. I'm going to do something I haven't been doing. And I don't know why I haven't been doing it. I am going to be taping down. We're going to make a clean painting today. So I've got my tape. I'm going to be starting out. So the first thing that I did was actually, I've sort of used it already on my clothes, so it's a little not as sticky as normal. Hopefully it won't rip the paper. Danae says, my internet's bad, but I'll be watching. Beginning addicted to Google Earth. It is so addicting, isn't it? It's kind of crazy addicting. I hope your friends and family can suffer through the addiction. But man, you can waste some really good time there. Rose says, lots of smiley heart faces. How are you doing? I'm glad you guys are all here. So, I am really excited about today's painting. I want to make it small enough that I can actually achieve it. Big enough that it feels spacious. Yeah, let's make it wide. Let's make a really wide painting today. I think I'm down for that. Alright, it's going to be cinematic. That's how it's going to feel. Cinematic. Uh-oh, we have a problem corner. The tape wasn't big enough. Alright, so, as per usual, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I am all about sitting, chatting, as we get this painting going. Alright, so let's get a better view of it so we can see it here. There it is. Maybe like that. We'll be doing some artistic adjustments. So two of my patrons this week had some really good things, really good questions, or paintings that they shared, and I was able to give them some thoughts. But I figured, hey, actually, this painting is perfect for communicating with them about the things that they want. So one of them wanted to know how to make grass look like grass and not like, you know, a giant carpet of green, and how do you sort of deal with the details back and forth. So this part across here, this area of grass that's going to be coming up, we're going to be dealing with that, and hopefully that can answer some questions. And then the other one, my other patron, Gala, who's normally here, maybe here eventually, was asking about just how to make something not get lost in all of the greens and the foliage and everything. So we'll definitely be talking about that this week. If anyone else wants to figure out how to be a patron and be able to share your paintings with me, and we can talk about them, and we can just, you know, work on stuff together, feel free to join me on Patreon. But yeah, She Was a Full Moon says, I'll be coming back and forth in your stream because it's a busy night and I can't miss your art. Oh, you're so kind. What busy stuff are you doing? That'd be fun. Today says, I found myself at 4 in the morning looking at the succulents growing on the rocks in the Canary Islands of Spain. That's exactly right. The pains of loving nature and being able to explore everywhere. Thank goodness we don't have like teleporters, otherwise, man. No, actually, I rescind that. I would love teleporters. So, let's get this party started. Let's get going. So I'm going to do the usual. I'm going to... Well, let's talk about this first. There's a couple of changes I want to make. One of them is that I do want to be addressing sort of the idea of having grass. So I'm going to... This area... I don't know if you can... There you go. This area down here that has all of this grass, but it kind of turns into bushland. I think I'm really going to stick to keeping a nice grass-scape. And then I'm going to make it instead of an overcast day, I'm going to give a little more, summer sunshine kind of feel to it. That's just what I'm feeling at the moment. Feeling a little sunny. So I'm going to do it. Okay, now we've talked that, we can get back to the fun. So, as per usual, we're wetting the paper to give ourselves a time period in which we can paint very loosely, where the paint is going to run into itself, seep into each other, do all sorts of fun things. It's going to give us a chance to make gradients, blur lines, all of the good stuff that gouache and poster color doesn't naturally want to do. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and ask. But this is what we're doing today. Alright. Now I think I picked up a thinner piece of paper than I normally work with. Which, that's okay. I'll probably deal with a little more buckling than normal, but it all works itself out in the end. There we go. So, Carol says, why'd you wet the back and over the tape that you placed down? Very good question. Very good question. And it has a very definite answer. The very definite answer for why did I wet the tape was, one, because I'm lazy and I didn't want to avoid it. But that's not really the answer. The answer is it does get wet. Like, the tape will get wet and then the paper will get wet. If I wet the back of the paper, actually this thing is just drying right up. Here we go. If I wet the back of the paper, I'm actually going to get less buckling than normal. If I wet only one side of the paper, then buckling happens because of uneven density or sort of mechanical comprehension of the paper. And so if I wet both sides equally, it's not going to buckle as much, which is really cool. Also, if I wet the back side of it, it's going to feed water into the painting for a certain time period, but not have the very surface of the paper be wet, which means that I can make some marks that are going to actually mark the paper instead of just hit the water and then scatter on the water. Decent Radical says, finally, actual green subject matter. Ah, you've been waiting for it. Okay, I think that's about enough. This paper is... We'll see how this turns out. This paper is acting a little weird. Not acting like normal. And I'm looking for my brush. My medium brush that I was going to use. And I cannot find it. Oh well. Alright, so I'm thinking about... To begin with, I'm thinking about the major gradients. So there's a couple of major gradients in here that I want to be relatively smooth, that I want to be relatively well defined. So those are the things I'm going to do first while everything's wet and we have this kind of wet, mushy period. She was a full moon says, that was very smart. Definitely going to try that method for buckled paper. Yeah, clearly it doesn't work all the time, but well, this is working. It's better than it would be. I'll tell you that. Look at that. You can totally see it there. Oh well. Let's do it. So I'm going to hit up that sky at the top. That's going to be our first target. So one thing that I've realized recently is that with these backgrounds that I'm gonna do I'm going to have this sky be relatively blue, right? It's kind of going to be a little generic, but that's fun. That's fun. If I put the white down first, and then I start to paint into the white, it's actually going to give me a better gradient than if I were to put the blue down and then try to get my white to go into the blue. So let's do it relatively quick and dirty, because this isn't certainly not the main point of this painting. So I don't want it to take all of our time and our attention. Let's try and get this to where we want it. You know what? That may not be the blue that we want. Just thinking about it. Here we go. I'm going to use this light blue. Okay. Oh, you guys can't even see what I'm mixing up. No, you still can't like that. Man, I need to get that. I need to get on that. Alright, so here it is. This is where the buckling kind of comes in and fights me. Let's see. That's better. That way you don't see all those reflections. Okay, like I said, this isn't going to be kind of the main point of it all, so I'm not too worried about a perfect gradient, but I am going to get my super smooth brush. It's almost like a makeup brush, and just, if this was oil painting, we'd call it feathering, so I suppose it probably still is. Alright, so there's that. She Was a Full Moon says, that blue is a Studio Ghibli sky color. I'm loving it. Yeah, isn't it nice? It's beautiful. Alright, so I've got that. The next one is... I was going to say that I'm going to do the ground yet, but I think I'm not going to do that field. I think I'm going to wait. Okay, because that's not the main point, and I'll get sidetracked and lost in it. And then I want to use whatever colors I'm going to bring into that. I want them to work really well with the colors of these trees. And these trees are the main point, so I want them to feel like the main point. Okay. Good. Glad we decided that. So this is where I'm going to come in and kind of just do some little lines for where I want things to be. So we've got this road coming in here. We've got this circular kind of dome that the trees are creating. I really love that. And then everything else is going to just come out of that. So I suppose that's really all we need, right? Maybe let's kind of define this line of where these trees are ending as they're coming down. And then, yeah. Let's do it. This is always a bit of like a scary part of the process. Nothing's down, everything's in the air. I do wish I had my medium brush, but oh well. So, there's a couple of things I know. The one thing I know is that I want this shadow that we're kind of working into is going to be our darkest dark. I know that. Because as I'm looking at this, I can see that nothing else really quite comes that dark, and since this is the central point of focus, I'm definitely wanting to accentuate that. there'll be like a little light streak in there. And as I'm doing that, I'm thinking about the main gradients that are going to be coming out of it. So there's this really nice, there's this really nice kind of like orangey, yellowy green that's going to come off into this, I don't know, cypressy thing. So to contrast with that, I'm going to have, I'm going to be thinking about a cooler blue. Having a cooler blue is going to help that warm, or a cooler, I'll be using a blue to cool it off. Having that cooler green is going to accentuate that warmth. Here, let's see if that shine has come off a little bit. There we go. So that's nice. Cobb, hi, how you doing? We have, let's zoom back out again. We have this really nice street scene that we're doing, focusing on this little tunnel, and then the interesting trees that are coming down from it. All right, we're in these really early initial stages where everything's up in the air. Everything's a little scary. Okay, I can see that there's a... What I'm wanting to do is to have a lot of opaque colors come in and play with each other as we're dealing with these different trees. I can see that there's a lot of water in here, and it's not coming out very opaque. It's very transparent because of all the water. So kind of did all that again, but put a whole bunch more paint in there. Still at this point, like constantly trying to think about what are the major gradients? How can I put various interesting colors and ideas in here and kind of still have it work out by making sure that I'm putting in the right kind of values. Okay. So this is the stage where we're really inclined to get lost in the colors, get lost in all of the different forms of green. I'm being very intentional to try and put in different blues to make up those greens. All right, so that's kind of cool. I have this other gradient coming down here, resulting in a very relatively cool green. Danae says, I've noticed before you've mastered using color temperature, so this is fun to learn from you. Oh, thanks. Yeah, color temperature is really important. I mean, it is the way that I think about color. And I get the impression it's the way that most people who have figured out how to not be completely intimidated by color deal with it. All right. So okay, speaking of color temperature, so we have this green that's over here that's coming down, getting really cool as it faces up to the sky, and the cool light of the sky is coming down on it. And then we're gonna have a really warm, as it gets darker, as it gets more into shadow, I'm gonna try and like warm it up down here. I'm gonna grab our really soft brush and see if I can make some of that gradient in here. I don't know the value of making this a really smooth gradient, and in fact I didn't make it a really smooth gradient. Oh well. Cub says, where would you like to take your art in the future? Where would I like to take it? I'd like to share it more. Really, I want to do like real traveling with my art. I don't feel like I'm an overly ambitious person, but I'd love to actually travel and paint in my travels. It's kind of almost why I'm doing this, right? Kind of priming the pump a little bit. All right. So here's oh man, I know what it was. This brush is too wet. So at the moment, I'm really just thinking about relationships. If I can start to establish everything, then I can really build some nice relationships. And I'm kind of using what I see as a key indicator for stuff I'm putting in initially for my relationships. Like, there's this tree that's a lot more yellowy, orangey up over here. So I'm going to put it in. And when we get around to it at the end, I might change things. But I don't think I'll know how I want to change it until I at least put something in. Ooh. And there's some really nice temperature. Oh, you can't even see that. Some really nice color temperature differences over here. Let's see if I can get a... Okay. Yeah, I think that looks better for you guys there. At least at this point. Let's have a little look. Okay. So then the other one that I really like is this tree right here. This one here is a very different... It's almost like this silvery feeling, and I like that. I think that's going to add a lot of variety. But what I'm going to do first is let's put down the docks. So let's see. I want to make that a little more interesting. So, oh yeah. I love this brush. So this is my calligraphy brush. Let's see if you can see it there. Which kind of just, sometimes it feels like cheating. Because it just has branches inherently made into it. Okay. So as I'm thinking about the docks in this little tree here, I want that major gradient idea in there to begin with. Kind of inherent in this little stamp that I have. Which is nice. I'm gonna kind of mix things up. So a lot of this other stuff, you know what? Actually, this same kind of tree, I think there's more of it down here. So I'm not sure if we'll see much of that, but it's always interesting to mix things up. Danae says, do you think calligraphy brushes need to be a higher quality one? I have found, I got this one from Michaels, and it really doesn't hold itself. It doesn't come to a point at the end. It doesn't hold itself very well. I think it's made for kind of a very sloppy texture, which doesn't always work for me. So I found that one's not particularly interesting to me. So for me, I think I found that if I can get a full range of textures from it, I like it, and that's that's nice, but I can't really speak as to the brand or value of this one because I found it in the bottom of a box somewhere. So I don't know what it is, but I think you could probably find a relatively generic one that would work pretty well, as long as it holds its form. Let's have a look. So yeah, there's these three. So there's more than that, but three cypressy trees that are kind of come up here, and these ones I think I'm gonna have them pretty dark. I want them to stand out. I want them to be kind of a feature of what I'm seeing. So let's do that. I don't think I'm going to have a high amount of detail within them, but I am. There we go. That's good. Okay. And I'm going to be distorting the shapes a bit from the shapes that I see, because I want them to, I don't want them to go above the scene, above the tape line. So I'm just going to be playing around with somewhere between what I see and what I need. Which, hey, that's I think the line that I always try to play around with. What I see is never quite gospel. Alright, there's one. I did, however, really enjoy, this is a shame, I think this isn't going to work out quite the way I planned. I enjoyed the sort of the triangle that these three make. So I'm wondering in this new scenario if I can sort of invert that triangle. Instead of having the middle one be the highest, let's try and grab it, make it smaller. And that way we can kind of have the triangle idea, have the sort of maybe it will be powerful feeling of it. But, you know, not go out of the bounds of the box that I've set. So one really important part about making these work well, making this whole scene work well, because the whole thing is like basically the same color, right? Well, basically green, even though green is a really big, wide color. One thing that I'm going to do is try to make the various trees really stand out. If I want them to stand out from each other, like make them really stand out from each other. So these ones they're really much darker than everything else, and I've clumped them together, and I think that's one, it frames them, helps them stand out, but it also frames the things that are around it. Okay, so that's decent. I'm gonna make, there's one sort of right here, but this one's definitely getting lost above. I like, in what I see in the reference, the kind of just little bits of light that are peeking through. I like that. I like that a lot. And I'm going to paint into this. I don't really care if the shape of it gets lost once it hits down here. Let's see. Can you see it? There we go. Yeah, once it comes down here and it sort of gets into this big mush of things, you know, I think that's a good place for it to get lost. Cobb says, how do you build a following on social media? Me? Why are you asking me? How would I know? That was a joke. Yeah, I think I have a lot to say about that. So, this time last year, maybe you wouldn't believe me, this time last year, I think I had 400 followers on social media. The thing that changed for me was I had some friends and mentors tell me that I was really Decent Radical. Hey, guy with 755 subscribers, how do I build the same following? 750. Do I have that on YouTube? That's kind of cool. It's a lot about messaging. It's a lot about like, so why do you subscribe to anything? Right? So we're talking about getting subscribers. Why do you subscribe to anything? That's the question. One is because you think it's going to be of value to you. But a good portion of that is that you kind of know what's going to happen. I'm very, I don't know if it's the right word, tepid with what it is that I'm going to like be spending my time and my attention on, and I'm really not going to think about what it is that if I don't know what I'm subscribing to, I'm not going to subscribe to it. So that's the first thing. And a year ago, I was doing a whole bunch of book covers, really any kind of illustration work I could get to. That's what I was doing, and that's what I was presenting to the world. Decent Radical says, it's actually hard to find you because your name is quite hard to remember. Interesting. And I have an old account which didn't really have anything on it, and if you look me up on Google, that's what you find. I need to fix that. So, since people, they're not going to subscribe to things that they don't know what it is, right? So a year ago, I was signaling that I'm an artist and I'll do anything, and if you subscribe to me, you're going to find anything. You're not going to know what's going to come out the other end except for maybe art, which is all right. Okay, so here I'm going to actually start doing some of these mountains. I'm going to do these mountains first. Oh, yeah, okay. I'm going to do these mountains behind first, and then I'm going to have the trees come out in front. So that's kind of the order of what I'm doing as I'm talking about other things. There's something really nice going on here, though, which I didn't recognize before. There's like smoke or something down there, which means that it makes more contrast with the trees, which helps the trees to stand out. So we're going to do a little bit of the same thing. We're going to do the same thing. So one thing that I did was just try to figure out who I am and what it is that I actually want to do, instead of working on the presumption of what is an artist and what does an artist do, which is kind of where emotionally I was at the time. Because I was just struggling to try and be an artist. I didn't care what. And so a lot of my friends were like telling me, you need to figure out who you are and what it is that you do. Find your voice. Find what it is that you love, because you definitely don't love everything that you're doing. And so the minute that I did that, and by the minute I mean like it was a hard process. If you want to watch the video, there's actually a bunch of videos on a YouTube channel called One Fantastic Week of me struggling through this process of figuring out what it is that I wanted to do and try and get rid of the ideas of what it is that I thought I wanted to do or thought I should do to be an artist. So we've got this nice little gradient that's going to come in here. Annette says, how long do you usually live stream? Normally it's actually traditionally ended up being about 2 hours. Maybe a little under 2 hours. Last week was less than that, but generally 2 hours. So, yeah. So it was a long process to figure out what it is that I wanted to do, and really convince myself that it was what I wanted to do. Or rather, really get rid of the false ideas about what I wanted to do. Danae says, you're the only person I set alarms to catch live. Well, thank you. You'll have thousands of subscribers soon, I'm sure. You have the skills and consistency and personality. Oh, you're too kind, Danae. Thank you. Look at me. I have no idea how to take a compliment, but I do appreciate it. So, Here we go. I just smoothed out that gradient and then I went ahead and pushed at it. I don't know why. So, the minute that I actually looked at my Instagram and I turned around and I decided I was going to get rid of everything that wasn't landscapes and nature and exactly what it is, the stuff that I'm doing now, the minute that I did that, and by the minute I really mean like I made that decision, I made that change, and then a couple of weeks later, within 2 weeks, I had many thousands of followers. So what it was a bunch of the people that I know or knew me or just internet knew me, and that liked my work, and my work was relevant to their audience. They weren't prepared to turn around and tell their audience about me until really what I was showing was consistent. And it wasn't them being stingy, it was just like their audience wouldn't really like it if they couldn't guarantee that this is what was going to be on it. And so a couple of my friends and just people that I kind of internet knew were able to turn around and share me because suddenly I was consistent. Suddenly I was able to present a clear message that they knew their audience would like. So they were serving their audience by giving their audience my work. And so I had a time period where I think I went from 600 followers to 7,000 followers in 3 or 4 weeks. It was crazy. And it just built from there. Annette says it's better to be a jack of all trades, or is it better to be a jack of all trades or focus on one medium theme as an artist? I can only tell you my experience, but my experience tells me that people don't hire jack of all trades. Well, they do, but the things that I've gotten that are high paying because they value what I do, and they value what I do because they know the thing that I do and don't want anyone else for it. So suddenly what I do becomes this like valuable thing to them, and if they wanted something else, they would get something else. But most people who want something specific. Alright, so while the mountains are drying, I'm going to come and put in... Oh, can you see me? Here, let's refresh that. There we go. While the mountains are drying, I'm going to come in and put in these little grasslands. So the question that I had gotten about the grass was really concerning detail to begin with. How do you start to put in a whole bunch of detail? This question was from a patron of mine. I really try to answer all the questions and look through the paintings that my patrons share with me and try and help them. So if you want to be a patron, go to my Patreon. That really helps me and gives me the time to do stuff like this. So the question was about like, how do we have this big field, it's kind of all the stuff is all the same. Do I paint all of the leaves individually? Do I do them together? If I do them together, then it just feels like a carpet. How do I like distinguish? I think, how do I just start thinking about the different, how do I do it? I mean, it's difficult. It's a difficult mental decision. Horst, welcome. Just stop by for a quick glance. Thank you. Thanks for stopping by. This is a really nice one. I'm excited about today's. I'm sad you're missing it, but let's do it. Okay, so what we're seeing right here is really sporadic. I don't think I'm going to be painting exactly what I'm seeing here today, but there are a couple of really cool things that I'm going to steal from it. Okay. And by I don't mean steal, it's a reference. That's what you do with references, right? So, oh, sorry. There we go. This stuff down here, these like little clumps of individual leaves, this is beautiful. This is so descriptive of what's going on. And really, it's relatively simple. And I'll show you how this is relatively simple, because you might not believe me when I say it. Horse says steel, but in a good way. A very good way, right? Very good way. The other thing to note is that we're never really dealing with one type of grass. So we have what's now currently dead, which I don't think I'll be painting dead. And then we have all these other clumps of grass. They're different kinds of grass. They have different textures, different feelings. Some are sad. Some are really happy. No, that's not what I meant. And then over here you have like this patch of cloves. Really, it's like it's changing, it's moving. And I had shared that I wasn't really going to put in this stuff so that we could have sort of a little more space to talk about the grass. So we will do that. We'll kind of maybe push this stuff over to the side as it hits up into the trees. So let's just do it. Let's go for it. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to change my water, because I'm going to work transparently to sort of do the top layer. And if I'm working transparently, let me show you this water as it stands. It's kind of gross. So, excuse me just 1 second. I'm going to pour some new water. Here we go. Got it back clean this time. Oh, I just sat on a paintbrush. It sounds uncomfortable. Okay, so one thing that you'll find when this is like very, very medium specific, what I'm about to talk to you about. One thing I find when I'm dealing with, and this is grass. Grass has feelings. It's interesting, tingly, wingly feelings. It never quite knows how it feels because it's always doing different things. Sorry, I had some hot chocolate, so I needed to stir it. Now I'm embarrassed. So, yeah, I'm dealing with an opaque medium, and that opaque medium gets darker as I'm painting something that's light. It gets darker, and that's hard. That's hard to sort of always be fighting that darkness. So one way, more feelings, it's fighting the darkness inside. One way to do that is that if I'm dealing with something that's really light and relatively natural, so it's all right to do, I can use my medium transparently to begin with, so that the white that we're dealing with is the white of the paper, and the white of the paper is not getting darker. So we're going to start there, really transparently dealing with some of this stuff. There we go. So where this line is currently, for those of you who weren't here before, this is where the trees are. The other trees are going to come down when this mountain's dry. I probably could do it now. The mountain is relatively dry, but we've just started this. Okay. So now I'm not fighting it getting lighter because it's just the white of the paper. Super useful. We also have a couple of other opportunities at the moment. And oh my goodness, I'm bleeding terribly, but you know what? I think that's for the best. I think that's going to be really good. Because it's coming down in this... it's coming down by the edge, and the edge is where the shadows are going to be. Anyway, right now I'm going to put in just some variety in color. You can see things like this, the different kinds of grass sort of make patterns and come in and out of this whole big whole area of grass. So I'm going to do things like that. Oh, that's way more. opaque than I was expecting. That's okay. Since it's all wet and all transparent, I'm just gonna work it. And you know what? If it fails, I can just paint over it. So, lots of that grass looks like it feels dead inside, says Horst. Absolutely. So yeah, right now there's another thing that happens. If you have a plane of grass and there's sort of a pattern that's easily sort of moving around relatively evenly, as you tilt it, that pattern increases as it looks like it goes back, and it gets smaller and thinner and more horizontal. So we can kind of use that kind of pattern to our advantage. Like right now, okay, I'm not thinking about the stuff that's in front of me. I'm just thinking about what might happen. And you know, at this point, this is all too wet to really do anything with. So I'm gonna leave it. It's okay that it's too wet. I'm just gonna leave it. Maybe I'm gonna put a little bit of sort of darker, more shadowy stuff here. Danae says, I think that kind of success would paralyze me. It definitely could. I know people who talk about that. I know some really successful people who get a pit in their stomach anytime they try to release something. I don't think I'm there. I don't think that's, luckily, like very luckily, I don't think that's how that comes to me. And I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't get to that point. I'm not gonna say it won't, because the minute that I do. But I just try to remind myself that the people who are here for me are kind of here for me, regardless of how good or terrible something talks. DJ Khaled talks about it, about success paralysis, or about grass. I presume we're talking about success paralysis. What does DJ Khaled say about it? There's a lot of people who feel that way, that you wouldn't think feel that way. Or at least that I never thought would feel that way. But they do. Okay, so now's a really good time. We were talking earlier about this particular tree here. Beautiful. I really like how warm it is. And I want to put that in. So I made sure that this area here as a whole was relatively cool so that I could put that in. And I think, you know, I'm going to wait a bit longer just because this here is still really wet. I wonder if I can show you that. Yeah, this part here is still really wet. Decent Radical says, his album's called Suffering from Success. It's turned into a meme now. Yeah, I'm sure people can get really mean about something like that. I'll have to look into that. Let's have a look. What are we doing? So while we're sitting here waiting on a couple of things, I can't put in these trees over here at the moment because all of this water here, everything would merge together. Be not fun. The same reason I'm not going to do the road here was that's going to charge into there, so that kind of leaves this area over here. Let's do it. So there's some really nice shapes going on here. So there's this really dark shape up here. I think that's kind of our big primary shape, and that lets these leaves to come here and stick out and poke out and look really nice. So, and then also there's this tree branch that comes out, which is probably one of the last things I'm going to do. Yeah, if any of you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. It looks like there's a bunch of you on at the moment. I'm more than happy to answer questions. No question is a bad question. Okay. So at the moment, everything is relatively mushy. There's and a relatively similar value. So I'm going to see if I can push some of it back. Begin to define some of these areas. And I want to be thinking about grouping things together. Like how can I group things together so that I'm not, I don't know, I'm not dealing with all the information all at once, because that would be terrible. I don't want to deal with everything all at once. But also, if you group information together, it's more powerful. If I have a dark area that's small, lots of dark areas that are small, it's kind of more of a texture than anything else. If I have a whole bunch of dark areas that are merged into one, then I can use that big dark area or big light area to really make a statement. Okay, so I'm coming in here. I'm trying to leave this shape of this tree there. Okay. Let's have a look. So I've got a couple of here. Having this area up here be dark, I think this is going to be a really foundational point. Like one of the things that's never left me that I learned was David LaFell, who is this like chiaroscuro a fine artist. Talks about light and shadow. One thing he says about shadow is that shadow is like a bass note. If the whole painting is a band, then the shadows are the bass. And if you can put some really simple shadows in just the right places, then the whole band feels really well supported. And so I think about that a lot as I'm painting things. And that's one of the reasons why I try and consolidate shadows, is that if you can make that bass note solid and simple and in the right places, then it's in support of everything else. I think it's a really helpful analogy. At least it's really helpful for me. I just tried to do the round brush gradient trick with the calligraphy brush, and apparently it doesn't work so well. Just have to take everything off. Okay, so even though I don't see any sort of real consolidation in the painting itself, I'm gonna put this in here. I'm gonna sort of extend this shadow to be bigger. Simone says, hello, how's it going? Happy painting, friend. Happy painting. I hope you're doing well. We are painting in Japan. Painting this really beautiful, picturesque scene. Found it on Google Earth in the south of Japan. So let's have a look. Here. Now I think I can start to put in, sort of thinking about the shadows. Where are these shadows? Where are they going? How can I get, like, basically the shadows of the whole painting? Can I pull them all together? There's not always a good way to do that, but it's a nice exercise, because I know that if I can, then looking at the painting from far away is going to be satisfying. If basically the whole painting works together to tell kind of this single story, or to play this single chord. I feel like the music analogy, or this band analogy, is really helpful when thinking about a lot of things. All right. I'm wondering, I think I'm going to start to put in some of these trees down here. I'd really like to get kind of basic coverage. I like to have the whole painting in so I can really hone in on what's important and what's not. The worst part about paper buckling, the worst part about it, I mean, it's not terrible, but the worst part about it is that suddenly you have pools of color, and so kind of a lot of the time thwarts what I'm trying to do. So while this is still a little bit wet, now I can come in and do some more interesting things with it. So I'm going to try and put in. This is essentially going to be like little shadows. If this grass was long, if there's a depth to it, and there's a depth to everything, there's a depth to everything. If you can describe the depth to everything, if you can describe the depth to everything, it just makes everything so much more tangible. It's one of those things that's like depth and three-dimensionality. If you can describe it, then it helps everything else. So if I can do some little tricks, some little things every now and then to help describe it, then wonderful. Super cool. So I'm just, at the moment, I'm thinking about variety. Ume, hello, welcome. Glad you were able to join us today. Simone says it's really tricky to find the sweet spot of shadows on trees, but with some practice you can do wonders. Yeah, true. Very true. So I'm just going to go wild. Sort of put variety in, put stuff in. Ooh, there was more paint on my hand than I thought. Oh well. See what I can get my paint and my paintbrush to do on its own. But I know eventually that this whole thing will settle down. It'll be there'll be less variety than there currently is. Less values. Umi says, "How are you?" I'm doing pretty good today. I think I'm having a good day. I'm excited about this painting. It's a fun one. So the other good thing, while everything's wet, you can move paint around. Like literally move it around. You're not stuck to where you put it down on the paper. Alright, so I am definitely going to be doing some more, putting in some darker spots, as if it's shadows coming down from the trees. Now, the trees aren't there yet, but it's a good time. Okay, that's good. How are you today, Ume? Now let's get these other trees in. Let's get them in. So I'm gonna kind of take some of these patterns that I see. Really nice stuff. I'm gonna steal them. They will be mine. Oh yes, they will be mine. Okay, so as the trees go further back, I am definitely thinking about how I'm cooling off the colors that I'm using to describe them going further back. So some of the color that I used for the mountains, I can even sort of move into these. Now let's see if I can get. Here, Ume says, good, but tired. It's been a long day. Yeah, I hear ya. I've had a bunch of long days lately. So I'm always keeping a couple of things in mind. I don't want to I don't want to spend too much time on it on anything in particular. And at this point, I can always get lost. So I'm gonna just make big, stupid strokes. It's gonna be awesome. And if I need to fix things, I can fix things. Okay, this stuff down here, I don't really have anything in my image for it because it's all covered up by trees. But I'm going to put more of these cypress stuff in. Ume says, I just started a formation to become a 3D animator, and now I'm too tired to paint. Oh yeah, that's a real struggle. Animation of any form is a very consuming study. Okay, so there's some really nice stuff here. What I really like, having one form like this overlap the other. So we have the mountain here, right? And then we have this tree that's coming above the mountain. Because it's coming above it, it's one of these like natural signifiers that says, I'm in front of this thing. So I might do a couple more that do that, because it's just a really good signifier for the brain that helps you distinguish depth, I think is probably a good way to put that. So if I can do a couple of them, I think that'll help me. All right. There we go. So that's nice. That's nice. Let's put a little more shadow in there. Now that we kind of have these basic foundations down. And I'll cheat and just use the shadows that I see here, because why not? Let's see. Yeah, that's nice. All right. Okay, now I'm getting this in. I'm going to leave this for a minute. And I'm going to get this road. So I just smooth off that line. Let's get this road going. So once we get that road going, we can start just look at everything as a whole. That's always beneficial. Always. So it almost comes out as like a purpley. I'm going to use some of the color that I used for the sky, and add some red to it and some white. I'm going to basically do what I did with the grass. I'm going to be going transparent to begin with, and that's going to give me some good leadway into figuring out what I want to do with the different patterns inside there. Lumi says, I love how you're giving more life to this piece with the choice of colors compared to the photo. Yeah, I wanted this piece to be a lot more, just more of a summer's day kind of feel, and this was definitely a little chilly. Like I felt a little chilly looking at it, but I love the scene, so I'm glad it's working. So, here we go. Do that. I might even get a little more on the edges where it's got all the fallen leaves. I'm going to put a little more kind of orange kind of feel to it. I really love how paint mixes when it's transparent. There's always just some magic going on. Magic. Okay, so we've got this. We're going to get a little of this sort of natural variation. Some of the stuff where the tires tread versus where they don't. Some natural bleeding up there. Let's have a look. There's a lot going on. Okay. If any of you guys have questions, feel free to ask. I don't always know what's going to be interesting for you. Here we go. As I put some of this shadow stuff down, it's kind of the shadow between the grass and the pavement. Man, that's satisfying right there. Super satisfying stuff. It's one of those things that makes it feel like it's got a whole bunch of depth. Like, I know I did it on the grass end of things, but doing it here seems to have been much more satisfying. To me, anyway. Okay, so one of the things I want to do that I'm not going to do just yet is this greenery stuff. We'll do that. I think we'll do that after this is dried. So in the meantime, let's think about what it is. Think about the piece as a whole. I'm going to... Man, that buckling means that middle spot's just basically never going to dry. That's a shame. It's kind of what I want to do. But let's have a look at this like silvery birchy thing. Sorry, just make sure everything's still working. Whoa. Is it? Nope. Okay. There we go. Okay. So we've got that. I want to get some of the details in this silvery birchy thing. So we're going to be painting relatively transparent, which is fun. And kind of green, gray, dealio. Let's see how that goes. So I'm going to get rid of some of the water that was on the brush so I can kind of dry brush it a little bit more. I think that'll be more interesting. It'll give me more of the texture without having to actually work for it. There we go. Much better. Simon says, will you be adding those little reddish leaves later in the painting? Which ones? There's ones on the ground. There's some more reddish leaves up here, which are really nice. Oh, there's some down here, I suppose. Which ones are you thinking? Cobb says, what's your favorite stage in the painting process? Either the complete mess at the beginning or the feeling when things start to actually come together. I feel like we're kind of in the little midway, sort of uglyish stage at the moment. Which always passes. Everyone wants to stop at the ugly point because they think that they've failed. But it's just everyone goes through that stage. Okay, let's have a look. Here, this tree here, as it kind of pokes its head out. Let's do a little more. Well, now let's finish what we started. Finish it. Okay. Danae says, do you see yourself getting a P.O. box for fan mail someday when your channel takes off? I hadn't thought about it. Should I think about it? Somebody says, maybe the one on the right so it has nice contrast to it. No, I think you're right. So I have started to paint that one a little bit. Up here, I don't think if you can see the color so much. The Mandy says, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Over on Twitch, looks like you are. How's it going? We're over in Japan at the moment. Oh, Madame Dragon Cat's now following. Thank you, Madame Dragon Cat. Nice to have you on board. So for everyone new, we are... Oh, I got to do this a couple of times around. We're traveling through Japan, digitally, using Google Earth, and doing a whole bunch of painting, little plein air painting, stuff that I wish I could do, you know, like in real life, but no one's got the money for that. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. Today we are over here in the south of Japan, getting some really cool stuff done. The Manny says, great, still a day job, but I want to say hi. Absolutely hi. What's your day job, if you don't mind sharing? Let's have a look at this. Always hard to keep painting while we're chatting good stuff. So let's get some of these branches in here. Annette says, looks amazing already. Thank you, Annette. I appreciate that. Madame Dragon Cat says, what medium you're using? I'm using poster color, which is kind of like gouache. Kind of like gouache. It's this opaque watercolor, essentially. It gives me a lot of chance to do and redo, and it dries really quick. It has a really cool sort of finish to it. Manny says, I work in tech. Long story short. Fair enough. Fair enough. Is it fun, satisfying work? I mean, it might not be fun. Is it satisfying? I suppose that's more important than fun. Madame Dragon Cat says, thanks. Yeah, no worries. I'm all here to chat, so any questions you might have, I'm here to answer. Okay, I'm going to try and get some interesting stuff going on in the silhouette of this tree. Let's see if you can see it a bit better from there. Maybe, maybe not. And there we go. Oh. Always got to refresh the screen. Boom, there we go. Okay. So if I can get some interesting stuff in the silhouettes of these trees, I think that's kind of where most of the communication happens. Manny says, I like it. Good. That's what matters, right? That's what counts. So there's some more silvery stuff going on down here as we kind of approach the road, but it's still wet. Oh my gosh. It's the problems of buckling. Got me again. Cobb says, the ugly stage is one of those things that makes me look at my art for a second and question all of my decisions up until that point. That's exactly what it is. Every time. You don't get away from it. No one gets away from it. Everyone has the ugly stage. Oh, I see something I need to do. So it might not necessarily be here. But in the painting, I still have this section over here. Because I guarantee that my trees are not making natural spheres. Okay. So I know time is short. I can't do all the details I really want to do, sadly. Yes, let's get around to a little more of that red. We're gonna go for some more opaque. So stuff in this red tree up here on the side that we've got up here. And we will see if we can make anything interesting go on. Annette says, would you ever live stream digital painting? I do occasionally. But most of my work these days is traditional. Most of my work these days is kind of just like this. So I'm actually pretty happy doing what I'm doing. I make a lot of tutorials. By the way, if anyone wants to learn how to paint, head over to my website. We've got a whole bunch of good stuff going on over there. But I do a bunch of tutorials, and a lot of my tutorials, it's kind of nice and easy to communicate with digital painting. So sometimes I'll have a big painting that I do for that. And so if I'm working one of those, I will definitely stream it. Here we go. Yeah. This has turned out really good. Good decision. Thank you. That's definitely the one that I needed to have worked on. All right. Okay, super solid. So this single line here, and this is what we're talking about with like. Zoom in. No, that was zoomed in. So what I'm talking about with shadows, you were saying shadows are really good if you can like sort of line them up, pull them all together, and have a really nice base note for the painting. It's also true of light. Like if you can have anywhere that you can have like a single stream of light doing something, making this single gestural movement. Every time you do that, it's just like beautiful. And even if in your reference it's broken, even if in logic it might be broken, it's always good to find a way to push your light streams together. I got huge Ghostbusters flashbacks right there. But having sort of like this single movement of light really broke up everything else, helped to bring a form to this and separate objects. Really good stuff. So thank you for helping me make that decision. Here's some stuff. Okay, so I did this gradient down here, which was good for the time, good for beginning. Ghostbusters for the win for sure. Now I have to make it a little more interesting. I think it stands out as a really weird gradient, just as is. So we've got to come on in and try and put in some interesting things. So I think the most important lines that I'm seeing in here, the most important movements, are these sort of sideways diagonal movements that are coming down here. You can see them in a bunch of things. They happen for a bunch of reasons, but I think it's because we're looking at the plane on this angle. You start to see a lot of this stuff. So we can do some random crap and see if it helps. See if it helps at all. So I'm going to use this frayed brush. Like I said, I don't have time for a crazy amount of detail, but if I can get some good logical reasons to put random stuff in a way that looks and feels nice, I will do it. Oh, Pink Eye Epoxy. Oh, yeah, Pink Eye Epoxy is now following. Thank you, Pink Eye Epoxy. That's awesome. The Manny says, it doesn't help that these images are taken with a bit of a fisheye lens. No, it doesn't. Look, you can pull back like super far. Bam. But, yeah. Pink Eye says, beautiful work. Thank you. Thank you. Did you find me on via Twitch or via somewhere else, something else? So, yeah, so I'm really going to try and hit in and hone in on some of these patterns that I'm seeing. I'm not really even thinking about what it is. I'm just thinking about patterns. Patterns of light, patterns of movement that I'm seeing. And then I can translate that into other things. I was a recommended channel on Twitch. How about that? Thank you. Thank you, Twitch. So, yeah. If I can think about these patterns and just place them in, and then I think then the logic can come afterwards as to what it is and why and all of that stuff. It's this really interesting thought that art is abstract above all else. And if you kind of like grab that idea and run with it, and then everything else kind of can just fall into place in a way that's comfortable. But if you're trying for realism, if you're not thinking abstractly, then it's really hard to be satisfied with everything. Okay, let's see. Whoa, we've got a whole bunch of questions all at once. Pink Eye says gouache. This is a cousin paint to gouache called poster color. Dorothy Rudolph says, hi Justin, hi all. Hey Dorothy, thanks for joining us. Thank you for hanging out. Feel free to ask any questions you have. We're here to chat and have fun. Cub says, how do you make texture brushes? Texture brushes are every other brush that's too old to work normally. So this one's a texture brush. Oh, can you? Oh, there we go. This one's a nice texture brush because it kind of frays off a little bit. This one's a really nice texture brush. It fell into some varnish, so a whole bunch of it is dead. It can't do its normal job now. It's a texture brush. The Mandy says, you said the paint you use is called poster color? Yeah, it is. It's the stuff they use in like anime backgrounds. If I didn't have poster color, I would use gouache, and it would basically be the same thing. Pink Eye says, I also like to just swipe it with my hand. That gives it a lot of texture that I normally wouldn't get with a brush. So that's nice. Okay. So I've got that. Now I'm going to come in with some. No, I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that. In the name of trying to kind of doing things evenly, we're going to move over to this point, which is the point that I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this. These like beautiful little patches of grass. Oh, Amy's here. Amy says, hello Justin. How do you decide what details to leave out? I found that decision that's a difficult decision. Loving the painting, by the way. Thank you. Pink Eye, I will answer you. Pink Eye says, oh wait, so what is the advantage of poster color of a gouache? It reactivates in a slightly better way. It's also It's got a little more pigment in it, and the pigment's technically bigger. It's not ground as fine, and so a lot of the times it sits on the paper, which means that you can remove it from the paper more easily than a gouache. And then there's a different response curve. So like the points at which it breaks down from being transparent to opaque, some of the feelings behind it. It's very similar stuff. Like, if you don't like gouache, then you won't like poster color. If you like gouache, you'll probably like poster color. But not something I would strain yourself over. Pink Eye says, does it have a sort of texture feel to it? Like where it feels a bit powdery on top? Not really. Actually, the other big difference is it really doesn't have much of its own. You really can't do like impasto stuff with it. It's really smooth. Really smooth. So I'm going to start to pull in some of these shapes that I see here. I'm going to make this field of grass feel like it's got depth to it by adding this stuff and communicating that stuff is kind of the side, the edge to it. So it's gonna. This is about the detail as well. The Manny says, I want to try poster color because I love gouache. I'll have to message you about it later. Do it. Try it. Rudiois says, Rosiois. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name. Says, hello. Thank you for joining. It is good to have you here. Feel free to ask any questions that you have. But here, hey, this is what details to leave out. Or even rather, what details to leave in. So, I mean, like, ultimately, there's an infinite amount of details that you could have, right? I could paint forever and never be finished. And so the question that I find useful for myself is what details, what should I be painting? And so the idea of having something that I'm trying to paint, having an answer to the question of what am I painting is always having a goal. If you don't have a goal, then you're going to just try and paint everything. So as I'm sitting here and I'm saying things like, oh, I really want to describe the depth of this, suddenly the details that I need to do that are the details that I need to paint. I don't need to paint anything else. And then maybe I'm thinking, all right, I want to communicate how long this is. And then everything that pertains to that idea and that intention is the things that I should be painting. Looks like we have a little family reunion in here. That's cool. Catastrophe Art, welcome. How you doing? And so the question of what should I be what details to leave out, it really somehow always just comes back to intention. Like, what are you trying to do? And if it doesn't actually pertain to what you're trying to do, then don't paint it. Okay, I think. I'm in good old TSU. Oh, cool. Very cool. TSU. The Twitch crew. Alright, so I'm going to darken a lot more of this. The reason I'm darkening this is that I want a lot more of the... I'm going to be putting in lighter spots, and I want them to actually stand out some. So if I'm going to have them stand out some, then I'm going to need a darker background. But I don't need to do it evenly. I'm thinking about little times. Amy says, thank you. I'll keep that in mind when I'm painting next. Cool. So definitely in this stage, this is a really good stage to start putting some of those different patterns that happen in the grass. Mandy says, everyone stand back. Justin's getting his Miyazaki vibes on. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to all of those films hitting up Netflix. Pretty sure that's happening like really soon if it hasn't already. Here we go. So as the grass comes closer, we can start to think about instead of having really thin stripes of different formations of grass in the background, it comes and we're looking down on it more, and they're wider things, so the kinds of patterns that we use kind of expand as they come closer to us. Pink Eye says, Justin, thanks for your thoughts. I have to go, but I'll see you again, I'm sure. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Cobb Wiz says, would you ever do concept art for animation? Given the right circumstances. So, in a way, I sort of am. I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff for a game, for a hand-animated game, and I'm painting all the backgrounds for it, which is really nice work to have, because it's basically what I do all the time anyway. The game's called Lunafawn, so if you can find that on... I see them on Twitter a fair bit. So D-Drake Studios on Twitter is heading up Lunafawn, and I'm doing work for them. I'm also in the middle of signing a contract for doing a music video, and I'll be painting backgrounds like this for that. Okay, so I've got that there. Now that we've got this darker area to paint into, we can start to do some interesting things. So I'm going to make sure, actually, to try and get some texture into this, so it doesn't look like just a big streak of paint. It feels like there's actually some grass texture. But yeah, someone was asking before about... Oh, Danae says, can you spell the name of that game? Yeah, it's Lunafon. Someone was asking before about whether you need to be kind of specific in what it is that you do as an artist. And certainly where you don't need to be, that's fine. But I've found, like, all of these opportunities come at me these days. They're always they're always higher paying. They're always... they just want me to do what I do, which means that it happens like so much quicker. And I am their point of expectation, not me trying to be something else for someone else. And it's a much better scenario than situations I've found myself in before. Well, okay. So I'm gonna start, and now I can start to think. Now that I've got the form of the thing. The whole thing has the right kind of form to it. Now I can start to think about details and just keep track myself of when the details are, making sure that the details aren't destroying the form. So long as the details aren't destroying the form, then I can add as much of it as I want. At some point, they would probably start to cut into the form. It becomes less clear as to what's going on. At that point, we can stop. At that point, we should have stopped earlier. So, oh, this is getting small. I wonder if I can... Yeah, let's see if we can zoom in. Boom. Might be better for you guys. OC Wyonox is following. Thank you. Ois Wyonox. Wyonox. I don't know. I'm butchering names all over the place. Thank you for... Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining. We are painting lots of fun stuff. At least I think it's fun. And apparently you're here, so I'll pretend we all think it's fun. yeah, feel free to ask any questions you have. Feel free to chat. That's what we're here for. So yeah, now we can start to get into detail. And the kinds of detail that we put in here, your brain kind of fills it in everywhere else. If I see this thing as one big object, which I am, I presume I am, I'm seeing this big field, then I can start to treat it like it's one big field, and as long as I put the right details in the right places, everything else kind of turns out good. If I were to start thinking about how to paint a field and then start just doing great grass blade after grass blade everywhere, it would probably turn out pretty miserable. Oh, Danae says, is your wife an artist? No, she's not. She is not. Oh, sorry. Boom. Something was happening there. She hangs out with our kids. She loves horses. She rides horses. She teaches therapeutic horse riding stuff. And it's just generally amazing. That's kind of her job. She does it really well. The Mandy says less is more sometimes. Honestly, probably most of the time. I think you're right. I like to view it as like poetry. I feel like painting's like poetry. And if the more that I can pack into any like single sentence, the better. You know? As opposed to like hyperrealism is like a text, like a manual. And there's nothing wrong with hyperrealism, it's just not my thing. I'd much rather read poetry, apparently. Alright. So yeah, I mean there's so much of this stuff that we could do. I feel like I could do a layer that's closer to us, but the camera's a little high for kind of really what I'm wanting to do with it, to put in too much in the front. There is, let's have a look. There's this stuff here that I could probably chuck in the side. But you know what? Let's do it. Let's be crazy. Let's be crazy. But since I have this paint in here, I'm going to try and put in maybe some like extra little tufts of grass. I think one really important thing that I always think about grass is like just trying not to be too consistent about it. I mean, at least, you know, grass in nature. It can make it feel like there's more healthy parts and less healthy parts, and parts that go up and down, and just the better. I'm not sure I really like all of this giant open up area. Marianne, I think, is that your name? Sorry if I'm butchering it. Follow up to what you were talking about just a moment ago. Do you ever get tired of landscapes and want to paint other subjects? And do you have an agent or manager? I thought I would get tired of it. I really did. I was scared to commit to it because I thought I'd get tired of it. But it's one of those things where and I remember hearing about this a lot, especially a lot of musicians say that like their way to being creative is to put a constraint on what it is that they're doing, and suddenly their creativity can just like explode. And so I was always scared of sort of committing to doing landscapes and then not being able to do anything else, and I'd feel constrained and like I couldn't do anything. I just found that's not actually true though. The minute that I was like, okay, I'm just doing landscapes, like ideas just exploded. Like there's so much more that I felt like I could do, even though technically that I'm constraining myself and putting a lot this like I don't know, a more constrained pressure to what I do. It's really interesting way that works. Really interesting. But so that's my experience. Do I have an agent or manager? I don't. I've at various points thought about kind of doing that, because business is scary, and unfortunately if you're an artist you got to do business, and it's a nice thought to get someone else to do all that, but hey, if you can find one and it works and it's a good thing, then that sounds interesting. Dorothy says the game studio that's developing Lunafawn is on Instagram and seemingly Twitter under the handle DDrake House. Yes, it is DDrake House. Check them out. I will normally mention them if I'm sort of sharing some of the work that I'm doing for them. So you'll see stuff on my social media about them occasionally. And they're really cool about me sharing that stuff. All right, so let's see what else we want to do. Yes, I was going to come back here and maybe try and do some of this stuff. Oh, there you go. I don't know what they're called. They look like pumpkin leaves. I doubt that they're pumpkin leaves. Okay, but fun stuff. Yeah, DDrake, it's a small studio in London. I think they're in London. They're in the UK at least. And they are really, really cool people. So I'm going to do... Oh, here, make sure that you guys can see this. I'm going to do a bunch of these leaves. They might not actually... you might not see them very well because I think the values are very similar. But then I'm going to put shadows under them and they're going to like stand out a bit more. Which it's a really interesting experiment actually. If you guys want to try it, is trying to do as much work in a small tight value range as humanly possible. And it's it's just a really interesting exercise. There's this painting by Richard Schmidt. Richard Schmidt's a fine artist who does some really cool stuff. But there's this painting once, and I took his painting into Photoshop because I was trying to figure out what was going on in it. And it was such an intriguing painting to me. There was so much going on, but it seemed simple. And then I turned it on black and white, and like half the detail disappeared because he was just using color variation to communicate about things. Ruzio says, lovely scene so far. Your painting's ugly face is better than my finished paintings. Oh, thank you. I think we're beyond the ugly point at this point. I think we've passed it. But thank you anyway. I appreciate your compliment. Okay, coming in here, kind of two-toning these things. Boom. And then, let's see. I love these flowers. So I'm going to do some ferns over here, just like I see. Like a lot of this stuff is just, it's almost like non-existent detail. But this is the stuff that'll make it feel like there actually is detail, when really there's not. And will make it feel like it's a subtle painting. It's always good to trick people into believing something like that. But here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to start putting in some shadows here. And it's going to help it to feel like this is actually got that three-dimensional quality. Let's see if I can get in some tight camera work. Ugh. Nope, apparently not. Okay, so think about these shadows that go underneath what I am terribly calling pumpkin leaves. That I can do two things. I can show the distance between the leaf and the direction of this sort of downward slope at the same time. Boom. Rosia says, what brand of gouache do you use? Currently I'm using a paint called Poster Color. And I'm using a Nika Poster Color and Shinhan Poster Color. I recently got sent a new thing of gouache that I'm going to try out and let you guys know all about. This stuff by G's Finest. I haven't tried it yet, but I'll let you know. I'll let you know what it's like when I try it. Oh, sit back a bit. There we go. So super cool. We're starting to get lots of really cool stuff. Danae says, I want to be in your painting. It's cold and miserable here and the grass looks so lush. I'd watch a whole video just on grass. Oh, I know. I know. I always want to be in my paintings. I think that's why I paint them. I'm just like, I want to be there. I want to be in this crazy, beautiful, lush, peaceful place. I want to be there too. Okay. I think I say okay a lot. Now that I've started like speaking publicly and things, I'm becoming very aware of the little phrases and tics that I have and I use. It's one of those things, kind of like listening to yourself on tape. You're like, I don't know about that. I don't like that. Interesting stuff. Okay, I'll just set it again. Sarah, welcome Sarah. Thanks for joining us. Sarah says, I enjoy your painting so much. It's always really amazing to be able to see you take a blank sheet of paper and be able to transform it into a beautiful scene. Have you been here all along and not said anything? Thank you. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you like it. I feel I'm really happy about this. The good news is that we took a pretty from the beginning. You know, it was going to be a nice scene. So I just try to. My biggest tactic is to find things that are already beautiful. But thank you. Let's get some of these flowers in. There's these flowers over here. There's some yellow flowers, some white flowers. I think they're attached to these vines. All right. So I'm really happy with actually leaving this pot here relatively ambiguous. I think it would be nice to, I don't know, have something breaking up the ambiguity. Maybe in here. Again, like, I don't know. I'm not actually making logical sense of what's going on here. Like, I'm not thinking about a particular tree or a particular something. I'm thinking abstractly, like, what would help this to feel good abstractly? And then, we can just make up what it actually is after the fact. Which is a really hard place to be able to get to. It's not always easy to be able to get to that spot. I want some little indicators kind of what's going on in this tree here. I feel like there's some really nice movement in there, and I don't want to overly define it. But if I can add just a little bit of what's going on there, it's going to be good. Cobb says, how long you been painting? You mean this painting or just painting in general? What is this really weird thing there? In general, I've been painting for 8 years. 8 years. 8 years ago, I started taking time to like really consider painting. Eight long years. Alright, so I think we now have now a lot more of this stuff is dry. We have this opportunity to just create shapes. Just some nice shadow shapes. Yeah, so 8 years ago, maybe 9, I came to the United States and got married, and I had about a year that I wasn't allowed to work while we got all of the visa scenarios situated. So while that was happening, I took the time. I decided, well, if I have a year, I'll do the thing that I kind of always wanted to do, and I'll learn how to paint and see if we can make something of it. And dang, it took a while. But now we're there. Okay, so now I think we might actually finally be able to get to these nice warm spots up here. Let's do it. I've been waiting this whole time to do these little spots, and we'll see if they actually turn out any good. The one thing I really like about these like little conifer things is they have this like satiny scenario where the outside of it is just more the outside of it's always lighter. It's almost like the Fresnel effect. I don't know. Don't know what it is. Okay. So I think I'm going to, I don't know. I was thinking about making this area under here darker, but I think it does alright. I might make just at the base a little bit darker to communicate some more shadow. Cub says, wow, I hope I get anywhere near that good in that time. You inspire me to keep painting and growing as an artist. Thank you so much. Yeah, no worries. Do it. You got this. You got this. I don't care what anyone else says. You got this. Marianne says, my Wi-Fi is being lame, so I'm going now. Just want to thank for answering questions. The paint's looking lovely. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Yeah, I will see you sometime in the future. So we're going to get just a little bit of shadow down here. Just kind of push the difference between what's going on. I think we can get some, actually in these two I'm gonna get some more interesting shadow shapes. And that'll be really good. This is a really satisfying part of the. Someone else was asking before about what part of the painting process do I like. This part, whatever it's called right now, it's kind of like things are pulling together. Things are kind of finally pulling together. This is a part of the painting process that I really like. Okay. I'm going to do a little bit with these ones in the background. I'm not even sure you're going to be able to see this very well. But just a little bit to get some of these shapes going. Dorothy says, looking at the earlier chat and those arrows, are you still using Google Earth as a ref? Yes I am. Here. Loosely at this point. Loosely I'm using it as a reference. At this point I think like at this point like everything's in there. I probably don't need to use reference. I can start to think more about what's the painting need? What are the functional needs? What are, you know, how can I improve this? And certainly taking reference is good, but at this point, if I never used the reference again, I wouldn't be surprised. But Danae says, I was wondering about that silvery tree. It's a bit of a straight line. Is that a choice to frame the mountains in a different distance? I shy away from straight lines. You mean like the bottom of it? Oh, just going straight up and down? Oh, I see what you mean. It is going straight up and down. That wasn't an intentional choice. That was just a lack of vision, lack of seeing what's going on. Thank you. That's a really good point. I think I'm going to fix that up. Shying away from straight lines is a good idea. Rosio says, you're an angel. I don't know where they got you from, but you're great. Thank you. I don't know where they got me from either. I have no memories before 12. Simone says, who doesn't love seeing things come together? I don't know. Crazy people. All the work that I did creating these shapes down here, and they just disappear when it dries. Yay! Oh well. Hey, this is a good idea. Kind of dry brushing some of it. Yeah, that worked out really nice. Boom. All right. Okay, so today you're wonderful. Let's break up this straight line we got going on here. I gotta just mix up a similar color, which it's the hard part about this is it's gonna need to be an opaque color to cover what's underneath it, and the rest of it's transparent. But I think I wasn't gonna have any shadows in there. but by some degree of necessity, I'll probably kind of put in some shadows underneath. And I think I'm going to have like these extra bits coming out from underneath, kind of like a hand cupping it. So they're... and they will kind of be a little bit darker. And then I'll just see what I can do to kind of work that in to the rest of it. It's going to be a bit of a stretch. But that's what paintings are for, right? Like just problem solving. Huge amounts of problem solving. Okay. You know, I don't think that turned out bad at all. That was good. I'll get a little bit of light on it. Pull together a little contrast. There we go. Okay, so I think we're getting pretty close. I mean, you know, I could work on this forever. So, but I think Danae says I've never felt so validated. Well, you know what? You should feel validated. You're a wonderful human being. And you came up with a really good idea. So you should. I'm not like super happy with the ambiguity of this line. I don't think it's doing anyone any favors. This is where a straight line is okay, but if I could find a way to break it up again. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I want to solidify some of these shadow shapes. Denise, Cub says, thank you so much for the encouragement. You're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, it's hard work. I'm not going to lie to you about that. It's not going to be easy. But the difference... man, when you get to the point where you start to know a lot of people who are successful in being artists, sort of on a financial point, it doesn't come down to how good they are as artists. In a certain way, like how good they are as artists is a reaction to the fact that they earn money from it, and so they can continue to pour time into it, and so they get better. The real like differentiator is, are they going to try to assess what they do as a business and be wise about it, and are they just going to keep on going to make it work? I know some people have differing opinions about that, but it's not easy, but it's definitely possible. And it's definitely possible for you. Okay, I think, so I have shadows in amongst all of this stuff here, but I feel like the underlying logic behind why there's shadows in certain places isn't solid. So I'm kind of just maybe being consistent about it. That's all it needs. It's funny how much you can get away with things that don't work in physics, so long as you're consistent about it. Because there's like this infinite amount of lighting scenarios that you could possibly ever see in your life. So your brain doesn't have this gut reaction that tells you something is terribly wrong. But if it's inconsistent with itself, then your brain's like, no, that's not a thing. If it's consistent, like that's the biggest thing. Okay, so there's something, as I'm closing out here, there's this little patch of light right there that is like so sweet. I'm gonna actually clean up this shadow here, and that little patch of light is gonna do so much for communicating what's going on inside here. So let's do it. Whew. So good. Sometimes just like a really, like this is the clearest thing in the whole painting. It's like that line right there. And then I'm gonna grab it, change its color a bit, move its vector to communicate what's going on with the light. Boom, so it just hit the side and just, yeah, that was the cherry on top. Instant depth. Isn't that good? Let's do another one. Just a little one. Just a little one. Let's not get greedy now. Right here. Right there. There we go. That was a really nice feeling. So there's definitely things I could do in this painting. There's definitely some different ways I can finish it, and I probably will. I don't know if I'll use next week, or not sure that I'll use Thursday to finish it. But maybe I'll do an impromptu painting one night, because there's a lot of good things I could add to this, but structurally it's done, and that's a really nice feeling. So thank you guys. Oh, Nora just got here and I'm just finishing out. Yeah, so I might do an impromptu stream just to finish this off sometime for maybe an hour or so. But if any of you guys are interested, I have tutorials on my website. Feel free to go visit. I have a Patreon account, so feel free to patronize me as much as you want. I won't take it personally, but I will appreciate it. And the Flaming Glide, just quietly observed today. This one was super. You quietly observed? Thank you. I was thinking about you, actually, when I was picking out this one, because this was another one that had a whole bunch of just green everywhere. Moat says, me too, gonna have to watch on YouTube later. Yeah. Thanks guys for watching, everyone.